Hi, friends. Welcome to the Story Highway, where every story is a journey through the heart. Today's story is about love, regret, and the quiet power of forgiveness, the letters she never sent. In a quiet coastal town in Oregon lived an old woman named Evelyn Hart, who ran a small bookshop called Sea and Ink. Her store was the kind of place that smelled like paper and sea breeze, a sanctuary for travelers, dreamers, and lonely souls. To the townsfolk, Evelyn was a calm, kind-hearted woman who always wore a gentle smile and brewed the best coffee in town. But what no one knew was that every night, after she closed her shop, Evelyn went upstairs to her small apartment and sat by the same wooden desk to write letters she would never send. Each envelope bore the same name, Daniel Hart, her husband, who had vanished from her life 30 years ago. When Evelyn was young, she and Daniel were inseparable two dreamers who believed that love could conquer the world. They married right after college and opened their bookstore by the sea, where Daniel would read poetry aloud to customers, and Evelyn would sketch by the window. But life, as it often does, turned cruel. One stormy night, Daniel went out on a fishing trip to help a friend and never returned. The Coast Guard found the boat days later, broken and empty. For months, Evelyn refused to believe he was gone. She kept writing to him, first out of hope, then out of habit. Her letters became her way of breathing each one, a conversation with the ghost of a man she couldn't let go of. Years passed, and the world around her changed. Tourists came and went. The town grew quieter, and the ocean outside her window kept whispering his name. Her hair turned silver, her hands wrinkled, but her heart never stopped waiting. Every letter began with the same words: "My dearest Daniel, today the sea looked like the day you left." Some nights she would read them aloud to the waves, her voice trembling like candlelight. One summer morning, a young journalist named Sophie came to town to write a travel feature about hidden bookshops of America. When she met Evelyn, she was instantly drawn to her warmth and wisdom. Over cups of coffee and stacks of old novels, Sophie and Evelyn grew close. One day, while helping organize books in the attic, Sophie discovered a small box tied with a faded blue ribbon. Inside were hundreds of unopened envelopes, all addressed to Daniel. "Are these love letters?" Sophie asked softly. Evelyn smiled wistfully. "They're conversations," she said, "with someone who still lives in my silence." Sophie, moved by her story, asked if she could write about her, but Evelyn refused. "Some stories aren't meant to be told," she whispered. "They're meant to be felt." But that night, Evelyn sat at her desk and wrote one last letter. It began differently this time. "Dear Daniel, I think it's time I stopped waiting." She wrote about how love isn't just about holding on sometimes. It's about letting go. She sealed the letter and placed it in the box with the rest. A week later, Evelyn passed away peacefully in her sleep, the box of letters beside her. When Sophie found her, she also found a note addressed to her, for the one who listened. The note gave Sophie permission to publish the letters. Months later, the story of Evelyn and Daniel was printed in a national magazine titled "The Letters She Never Sent." It touched millions. Strangers from around the world wrote to Sophie saying the story helped them heal from losses they had buried deep within. Years later, Sophie reopened Sea and Ink as a memorial bookstore, keeping Evelyn's desk exactly as it was: a cup of coffee, a feather pen, and a framed quote that read, "Some loves don't end. They just find new ways to speak." And on quiet evenings, when the waves hit the shore, locals say they still see a faint light glowing in the attic, as if someone is writing by candlelight, whispering words to the sea. This was The Letters She Never Sent, a story about love that transcends time and the courage to forgive the past. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to The Story Highway, where every story reminds us that life's truest emotions live in silence, memory, and hope.